Hello, everyone. Marie Burns here from Mind, Money, Motion. And today I'd like to talk with you about beginning with the end in mind. What I mean by that has to do with our assets. Have you told your assets where to go? You may have heard of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It was written well over 15 years ago, but it is still a bestseller for good reason. He has timeless advice that's applicable across many aspects of our lives, whether it's business or personal. And one of his recommended 7 habits is to begin with the end in mind. And I couldn't agree more, especially when it comes to personal finance, and especially as it relates to titling our assets. I know I may sound like a broken record on this topic, and I hope you're not so tired of my soapbox on this matter, but it's extremely important part of the planning. Even if you don't have estate planning documents in place, which 60% of Americans still die without them in place, or even if your documents are outdated. And the best practice there is to be looking at them and reviewing them about every 3 to 5 years. Either way, the account titling and beneficiary designations alone can save your assets from probate, from delays, unnecessary costs, and going to someone you didn't intend. So on this topic, the best starting point really is looking at your situation to see what homework you might have to do, and very likely you do have some homework. To start, you need to make a list. What do you have in bank accounts, life insurance policies, annuity contracts maybe, non-retirement and retirement accounts, and any property that you own? I found that list so important now and in the future that I designed one, and it does the math for you, better yet. So it easily captures all that you have in one place, including the titles and beneficiary details. You can check that out in my net worth summary found at mindmoneymotion.com. Now for the homework. So once you have written a list of all of your assets, you need to look at the detail. This is where we take Stephen Covey's advice and begin with the end in mind. And ideally, your estate planning attorney should really go through this list with you to be the one that recommends the titling and the beneficiary designations. If you look at the bank accounts, for example, does the title of your savings account perhaps tell the bank where you want that account to go after you're gone? If it's not a joint with rights of survivorship account or a trust account, you may consider adding a POD, or maybe you already have, payable on death. It's naming a beneficiary only upon death. So you're not giving anybody authority to use the funds right now. And a beneficiary designation on any account, whether it's non-retirement or bank, will bypass probate. So no delay, no cost, and it goes right to where you wanted it to land. There's a similar option to that POD also available for non-retirement investment accounts as well as property. If those assets, again, are not already titled as a joint with rights of survivorship or trust, because maybe that neither one of those applies to you, you can add a TOD, transfer on death designation, on those accounts, again, in order to bypass probate. This is especially important if you own property in another state outside of your residence. Otherwise, your property might end up going through probate in 2 states, the state of your residence and the state of its location. Double whammy. Again, consulting your estate planning attorney is really the best resource for getting recommendations on your specific situation. Then there's the retirement account category, and annuity contracts might fall under there, or life insurance policies, accounts that we typically know we need to name beneficiaries. And you want to be sure that your beneficiary designations match what you said you wanted to happen in your estate planning documents. And generally naming both a primary and a contingent beneficiary, or even multiple beneficiaries under each of those, is a good practice. If you have an IRA, for example, and you name your spouse perhaps as the primary beneficiary, but then you are both killed in a car accident together, then who would you want to receive that account? That's the contingent beneficiary. That's who would receive the account in the case of that IRA, for example. The importance of getting these beneficiaries correct really hits home when you realize that a beneficiary designation is really like a mini will on each account. I can't tell you how many times I've had people to tell me, they usually say, well, I'm really not sure what my beneficiaries are listed on every single one of my accounts. It's been so long ago that I honestly don't remember. But it doesn't matter because I have it all spelled out in my will or my trust. That is wrong, wrong, wrong. The bank, the insurance company, the investment firm, or whoever the custodian is that's holding each account is not going to consult your will or your trust unless you name those specifically, your estate or your trust directly as the beneficiary, which is often not always the best advice. They are going to distribute that account to whoever is listed as the beneficiary on each account, period. So because these beneficiary designations act as mini wills, I watched a recent widow see her deceased husband's 401k go to his brother, and why one adult child received an IRA and owed and paid all the taxes on it in her tax bracket, with the deceased parent's assumption that she was then going to turn around and distribute it fairly to her siblings. And why so often there is this unnecessary probate delay, often 1 or more years, that's so avoidable. So truly, I don't want, and I kind of am the nice nag bringing this topic up again and again because I see lots of misunderstanding and too often not enough action taken because we don't really realize the impact. So Stephen Covey's advice, beginning with this end in mind, ask yourself where you want each of your assets to go in the end. It is truly an exercise that's going to save your family much misunderstanding, plenty of time and delays, as well as cost in the end. You can check out my free chapter on this exact topic at mindmoneymotion.com. This procedure, this task, some people, it's paperwork, so they dread doing it, but this is a way to express your wishes now in writing for clear distribution later. You worked really hard for what you have, so it's important to put some time into assuring the final landing spot for the fruits of your labor.